point of order here.
Order.
Given the length of our meeting here, some of us were wondering if it would be possible to have this lengthy presentation moved to maybe another city council meeting.
Possible.
It's not an action item, it's just a presentation.
It's just a
But
presentation.
you can table any item. I mean,
We can always table
You
an
guys wanna
item.
table
It's true.
meeting,
It
you can do that.
depends on.
One-on-one.
But will the next meeting be just as lengthy?
And how long are we talking about? Like 5,
I
10
think
minutes?
this one is probably gone a little bit longer. Had some issues. Maybe it would be good if we could find an agenda meeting that is low in numbers and add it to that.
Right here.
How about a suggestion, Councilman Watson?
I am all ears.
There are, city services encompasses 13 different subcategories, so tonight we have prepared a presentation that includes 14 categories. We can stop at the utility enterprise slides.
Break it into pieces.
how long do you think it'll take? Like, I think that's
I'm looking, and I think that can go relatively quick. Unfortunately, probably about 30 minutes. And I can try and
You
shorten it.
think we'll have questions?
Well, no.
I would count-
That's the main thing.
We might have
If we're gonna have questions, you know this can go on.
So
Right.
if I may interject, I wanted to do the Finance 101 presentation last time because I know it's a big concern, especially new council members, and I want to equip you with as much information as possible. We don't have to do this at all tonight, but it is something that it would be great to have a light council meeting, but also it should happen sooner rather than later. And you'll have a better understanding of why we're doing a pipe instead of a filter, and how the whole system works. And we want to get you out there and show you how it works too, so that you can better relate to it.
You know what, we can do it, I'm fine. We can stay here till whatever time you want. Mike, I'm sure you practice, you put it together, so much time that you put together, it's here.
Nate
I
put a
would-
lot of
I
time.
I think that we break it up. I think a half hour on anything is long enough, and then we can do another half hour.
So we'll stop it
Add
at
another.
whatever time, Mayor, you determine.
Sounds good with me.
Whatever, you can do it all, do it 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours.
You have the gavel?
Time's up.
Okay, your mark. Take it
Okay.
away, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So, City Services 101. Go through the next slide. City Services has a mission statement. This was developed in 2005. The Department of City Services' mission is to maximize available resources to ensure courteous and superior service delivery to all citizens, to promote programs and services that will preserve and enhance the quality of life in the most efficient manner. Employees will strive to serve the community with a spirit of excellence. The operating budget was approved in June 2018. City Council adopted that. At the time, we have City Manager Mr. Ziegler, City Attorney Mr. Zamora, each director under 5 different departments. You can see what their responsibilities are. City Services is responsible for those 13 areas. So those 13 areas is what we were going to talk about tonight. Timer's going.
Talk quickly.
I'll go forward. City Services encompasses general funds, and you can see the categories and the values that were approved in the budget. I'm not going to go through each individual one, but this is essentially what City Services is responsible for. Our total operating budget, $8.2 million, 65% of the entire budget is managed by the City Services Department. There's the City Services Department, all 14 of us. We also have our consultant, QK, as a city engineer, and now contract city planner. We also contract for building inspection services.
Okay, just a minute. Sorry. So you have QK as a consultant, and he also bids on the,
No, he is our city contract city engineer. He is not allowed to do any private work inside the city, I should say. They are not allowed to do private work inside the city limits, new private work, since they were assigned the city city engineer. And so as city engineer, we take city projects to them.
but they don't do it.
No, they do. First, we ask for how much is it going to cost. We get a proposal, like the Lafayette Water Main project that council approved earlier. We don't allow them we ask for a project and give them an open checkbook. I want to know how much it's going to cost before we proceed.
Okay. Just clarification. They're consulting,
They're contract city engineer.
but they're not consultants.
Well, it's like we have a city engineer, only we have a part-time city engineer who's also a
Right.
city engineer for other places, so he's a consultant. He's
Mhm.
not like a regular employee.
Okay.
I guess-
I'm just thinking conflict of interest. kind of.
He can't, so me, if I want to start a business downtown and I need an engineer, me as a resident, I can't go to QK because they're going to be working with the city. So there is a conflict there because they're going to be checking their own plans.
Yeah.
So they don't do that.
Oh, okay.
They cannot do business.
So who checks them?
The QK checks them for us, for the city side.
Oh, for the
So
city side?
I go and hire,
Engineer.
Lane, right, so I go and I hire Lane Engineering, we develop the plans for my building that's downtown.
Mhm.
When I submit them to the city sends them to QK to look at and say, hey, they appear to be good, and so now you really have two sets of engineers including that,
But don't we have engineers in the city?
just QK.
The city engineer is QK.
We did have a full-time, but he left for another job, and rather than hiring a full-time with benefits and all of that, we just contract with QK.
Okay. Go ahead.
So the annual salary allocation, when you look at, and this is a page right out of the budget. Difficult to see, but on the very, very top, you can see the department position, general fund, utilities fund, gas tax fund, wellness, or other. Other, typically in this case, would mean the landscape assessment districts. How are our budgets or salaries allocated? To what line are they charged to? So you can see, and for example, city manager, 65% general fund, 18% utilities, gas tax, and wellness. And specifically, we're talking about city services. You can see how the salaries of all the employees are allocated. For example, a lot of our maintenance guys, we have a lot in the utility department, and that's across the board. But then when you look up at the finance department, hey, they're in utilities as well. And we'll talk, that's a completely different section. But because we're going to break this up, the reason why they're here, they're identifying the utilities, they bill, they collect, they monitor, they do monthly reporting. So everyone has a piece of that pie. So if there's a question, why do we have 19% of gas tax? Well, that's to manage either maintenance or projects that deal specifically with streets. Again, here, other, typically referring to landscape assessment districts, and that's a specific item that council reviews and approves every single year. But it takes staff to develop the reports to bring to council, for staff to review the reports before they go to council. Staff is dealing with Tulare County Assessor's Office. If there's any changes in their reporting requirements, which there has been, they've transitioned to electronic submittal only, as opposed to fully analog processes in the past. This, like I said, this page is included in the budget. So the first subcategory we're going to talk about is streets. And so there's a general street map and current city limits. How do we fund streets? The general fund has a budget of $254,856, and that's for general maintenance, signage, striping, and painting. In the center, though, you can see where the funds are developed. That we have gas tax, local transportation tax, surface transportation programs. That provides about $1.18 million, and that feeds the general fund and also the capital improvement program. The capital improvement program involves construction and renovation of streets that council approves.
Mike, the general fund, why do we have to have the general fund? It can't go into the middle, the gas tax? Why is that broken up like
There's some
that?
minor maintenance involved in general fund, but the money coming from the, to support the general fund expenditures in the streets or minor maintenance programs come from gas tax or surface transportation.
Oh, they come from. the-
Yeah, so
okay.
that's what's feeding
Oh, okay, I think,
the
okay,
budgets.
okay.
There's a transfer each year from these gas taxes equal to the value of the streets department. So it's completely covered by these other taxes.
With the passage of SB 1 last year, there's a category and requirement called state of good repair. And each city identified, we didn't, the state identified the state of good repair value, which we must meet every year to be qualified for SB 1 dollars. I think our number is $186,000 we must spend on maintenance in order to qualify for SB 1 dollars. So we've worked to put together what's called the Public Works by the Numbers information page. And so you're going to see breakdown of what Public Works by the Numbers is as it relates to each subcategory. So just under 38 miles of streets, 6.5 miles of alleys, just under 44 miles of sidewalks, 213 street signs, 249 stop signs. The list goes down. 81 city-owned and operated streetlights, predominantly downtown. 600 Southern California Edison lights, which are scheduled to be transitioned to LED, hopefully by the end of this year. One traffic signal, we don't own it, but we pay a very small portion of the operations on that. And we have 145 crosswalks, all dealing in the streets department.
The Edison streetlights, the city has to fund that?
We pay for the operation, roughly $10 to $12 per light, depending on age. And you'll see with the new roundabout, in fact, some of the streetlights are up. Those are going to be all LED streetlights installed there. So the costs for LED streetlights are going to go down, for operation costs. So just a picture, we have that Mario and Junior are doing some pothole patching, and I can't tell who is in the roundabout doing general maintenance. So every once in a while we get a semi that can't quite navigate that, so we're going to go in and do a little bit of repair work. Sorry.
Is that your street?
Actually, that was Honolulu Street, just west of Mount Vernon. Our field supervisor, Marcel Cherez, provides a monthly report. And on the monthly report, he identifies what they did with regard to streets. And then this is an annual report. Typically, when I get the report, that report's included to Bill at the next council meeting, and then he'll send it to the council members on the weekend of it. But the annual 2018 report identified signage, either repaired or replaced, asphalt, potholes, whether it's asphalt that's put in the pothole or grindings. Typically, we use grindings or granite, that's decomposed granite in alleyways. And then striping, you can see the amount of work that was accomplished in 2018. So this map was developed in 2011, and it identifies the work that's been done since 2011 up to this fiscal year. What streets have been improved, and what did we do on those streets to improve them? That's great to hear, but what are you going to do for me next? So what council approved in this budget is what we classify as a Cape Seal project. Those are the 6 areas that were approved by council and the estimated cost of repair. So Tulare Road, about 2 miles long. Hermosa Street, the entrance to the town, just past the roundabout. The downtown streets, which are showing a little bit of signs of wear and tear. Orange Avenue, that was requested to be Cape sealed. Harvard Avenue, it's two blocks of Harvard Avenue, Sequoia Avenue, and that was it on the Cape seals. Rehabilitation, the Cape seal is more of a surface treatment where it is going to extend the life of an existing asphalt surface that's in not bad condition. A rehabilitation, in this case, we're looking at bringing in a milling machine and taking out the street completely. We've done that successfully in other projects in the last 6 years or so, and we find that we get some pretty good extension of money that we inject into rehab projects. These 3 projects, though, are pretty significant.
Mike, what's the street behind, the Catholic Church?
No, behind.
Sorry, there's a behind, in front, the cul-de-sac.
Well, there's Harvard, there's Lindale.
Well, you can see it.
Harvard
You're talking about by itself.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like,
That is not on here, because that's a real,
It was on the Capitol Street program, but it wasn't selected as this fiscal year. So that is still on the Capitol Street program.
Linda Vista.
Linda Vista Loop.
And what would be needed for that? You should have it gone over there.
Rehabilitation.
we talked about it, reasons why we didn't get it on, but it's.
Rehabilitation. It's included in the overall master list, and that list is presented before council. Typically, budget cycles, council select the streets you want, and so it's there, but these streets were selected over that.
It's just prioritizing for the amount of money that we have. You can do, you can do a big project or do several small projects. And council really debated over it quite a bit and wanted to focus on these in this.
This is the year that ends June 30th of 2000.
Okay,
So
so
we
next
talked
fiscal year.
about it's around 3 months.
So the second street on the rehabilitation list, Mirage Avenue, just north of the downtown, and then Sequoia Avenue, that would connect the work that was done on Sequoia to support the Roosevelt project. So the next category, I'm done with streets, next category is parks. Yeah. So I'm crossing that. $238,000 general fund budget. We do have partners that in the past we've received grants or loans from USDA, RCAC, and California Department of Parks and Recreation. That's the grant that we're going after with the technical assistance we've received.
Which, congratulations on that. I mean, that's great to get that.
I think that took a while. Let's just say that. So city has 4 parks, 16 acres of landscape areas, 14.7 acres of athletic fields. That actually went up by 11 acres with the inclusion of the Lindsay Sports Complex. So where are the parks? We have Kaku and Olive Bowl, which we'll be looking at again. Harvard Park. I can go into detail about the history of Harvard Park.
you don't have to,
want
I hope you know it.
Okay.
I wanted to say something. But if you want to, you
I was just
can.
saying that in 1991, there was no Sierra Estates 1, 2, or 3. It's about 150 individual residential properties that all drain to this park. Lincoln School now drains to this park. That wasn't around in 1990, 1991.
But they only drain to that.
They only drain to this lower section. Yeah. And like Bill said earlier,
So was that meant to be, or did it just?
Yeah, well, it was
Yes.
designed that way.
that is the
designed
way
that way.
our flood
Take
system,
away our
flood
park.
collection
No, I'm
system is
just
designed. Yes, it is. Okay. Our downtown areas of responsibility, greenscape areas that city crews maintain. City Hall is a big one, but City Hall has a lot of history, and we'd really love to keep it that way, unless council directs we want to do something different. Frontage tree maintenance. At some point in time, if Mission Estates does develop, we can relinquish some of those responsibilities, but that may be a ways.
Like
We
how
have
long are we
four-
talking?
What's that?
Like how many of the
It
guys?
was tax, June, so June of this year.
Oh,
June of 19.
Tax sale, I mean,
Tax
tax sale.
Right.
5 years minimum.
We're going to be maintaining those for the foreseeable future.
We maintain this very small buffer zone of orange trees, and that was specifically required as when both apartment complexes developed. It's a sound buffer zone, and so but that's still a city responsibility for maintenance. We maintain this area here, which is actually in Caltrans right away, but because of the maintenance agreements that were done when at the time Burger King and there's a Shell station were developed, that was our responsibility. And we've always had the maintenance area of what we call the Lindsay sign area. And then City Park. There's been a huge transition in the last 15 to 20 years at the City Park. And we're seeing a lot of benefit from the transition to City Park, as well as removal of the hospital, wellness center, aquatic center, and then just last year with the development of the Lindsay Sports Complex. Which actually, there's not 5 fields, there's 9. Our wellness director said, hey, let's put 4 more in. So that increased the area of responsibility. So that's it for the parks category. We can move into the engineering category.
Still got 10 minutes, Chicken?
So engineering, the engineering department is funded through several different sources. What does the engineering department do, and who do they work with? We have city staff. Council or typically council would say, hey, we're thinking about this type of project. We take it back to our staff, Neva and myself, and then also bring in the city engineer to look at, is it possible? What does it cost? But there's project development, project design. That takes a lot of time, identifying what the project budget is, putting that in an adopted budget cycle, getting everything approved. We bring it to council and say, once the budget is adopted, are we ready to go to bid? We request authorization to bid the project, and then there's construction oversight and management. While it looks really good on a slide, it's very time consuming. We started talking about a roundabout at Hermosa and Westwood in 2006. We're now building it in 2018. That's an extreme example of what does it take to deliver a significant development project or city project. It's not just, here's the money, go build it. So we have to make sure council's aware, we make sure the money is allocated, where's the money coming from. And in case of a test well, we were awarded a grant in 2016. It's now 2018, we get to drill that well, hopefully starting next month. And so it's a very, very long process. And just to make sure we have people with experience and knowledge of the area, Linda Vista Loop, for example, we've been watching that street for 10 years, and now we've got it on a list, and hopefully within the next 1 to 2 years we can take care of that problem. But there were other higher priority projects the council saw, and that's how we built that street program. But we also have to work with consultants. For example, Autumn Hills Estates, 40-lot subdivision. They had to hire a consulting engineer, develop their own plans, submit it to us for comment. We reviewed that with the city engineer. The complexity there is they're not only dealing with utilities they have to extend to that 40-lot subdivision, but they have a Linmore irrigation main distribution pipeline right underneath the street that they were going to have to relocate. Well, wait, you can't do it unless Linmore irrigation is offline, and it only happens from October until about February. And so we have to work with consultants to make sure that the design is right and make sure the timing is right. But when Autumn Hills subdivision is being constructed, Like the roundabout project now, we have a project inspector that's out there making sure that they're building what the plan says. And if there's something they find, unforeseen circumstances, for example, NABA gets to deal with it. Whether it's making a decision on a minor thing right on site, let's move this an inch, or here's the conflict resolved, or it involves bring it back, consulting engineer make a recommendation, we review it with the city engineer, and then it can move forward. So there's a lot of process involved in not only city projects, but private and development projects. So that's engineering in a nutshell. Building and planning. So building and planning is run through the City Services Department. Planning is a collaborative effort with the actual city planner, which is the city manager. But we do have a planning contract planner in our department. So whether it's residential, commercial, industrial project, or whether it's new, whether it's remodel, whether it's a new water heater, a new roof, or we want to build an $8 million 50-unit affordable housing complex at Westwood and Hermosa, the plans come to the City Services Department, and then we determine through planning and building and engineering department what requirements are going to need to be met for that project to move forward. In the case of Palm Terrace, it was identified by the planning department that you're going to create more congestion with pedestrians at that intersection. You have to contribute to the resolution. Their contribution was $1 million contribution to the city of Lindsay to support around that. So there were requirements that went along with the contribution to the city. Air quality was the biggest one, and that's why the roundabout was selected as part of the intersection control evaluation. So, but any project that requires a permit comes through the City Services Department, goes through a planning and then a building and engineering department review. And you can see the steps there. Plan review, environmental review if it's necessary, and then it goes into the permit process. Permit is determined evaluation, permit fees are collected, and then the project starts. Then there's building inspections. If it is an actual building permit, then we have our building inspector provide the inspections and sign off as the project moves forward. If it's a development project, then it goes to engineering. NABA provides all the engineering inspections. So in 2018, and this is also what would be included in a council update, but we saved it for the presentation tonight. In 2018, 299 permits were issued, $8.3 million valuation, and we collected $196,000 in building permit fees. That collection can go to general fund or a specific utility fund that it was earmarked for. Just a quick comparison, though, that in 2017, less permits, double the value, and double the fees collected. What happened? Palm Terrace. Again, $8 million project. So when we see something like that, it's a significant improvement in the valuation, in the fees collected, and also in property taxes. That's a long-term investment that self-help will be paying a property tax that comes back to us. And so the 40 units at Autumn Hills, when they're done, great. We have 40 new property owners inside the city of Lindsay. But each one of those $225,000 to $275,000 home gets assessed a property tax that we collect a portion of. So development is good until council directs otherwise. Comparison, 2011, and just a quick graph, 2011 to 2018, we can see a significant downturn in what the valuation of the permits, which is the orange, and the fees collected in thousands of dollars in the yellow line. So we have millions of dollars building permit valuation and hundreds of $1,000s in the solid yellow line on the right-hand side. So that just shows the trend. If you throw out the 2012 really downturn in the permit valuation and fees collected, you can see, we're collecting $200,000, in excess of $200,000, $300,000 per year in the building department. And so that, again, that goes to either enterprise funds or the general fund. So that's in the end of building and planning.
Great job.
City facilities. So city facility maintenance. How close? I think we can cover this one pretty quick. I hope. So those are the areas of city services maintenance area responsibilities. City hall, city services buildings, public safety buildings, there's two. Senior center, city library, Sierra Vista Plaza, and that's the where the Chamber of Commerce, the Wild Bill, and the Cascade Restaurant is housed. The Wellness Center, we're supporting only. There's a transition going on at the Wellness Center with Omni coming in and Lisa's group pulling out, and so there's still a transition that we provide support on. And then public restrooms, Sweetwater Plaza, and parks, public restrooms that we do maintenance on. Yeah, it's as simple as we have a drain that's plugged, and so, but if it's plugged and no one's fixing it, it's an issue. So it needs to be have attention right away. That's it for city facilities.
That was quick.
Next up is what's actually run by Becky Mestall in the City Services Department is tracking home loans and portfolio management. So we have 332 loans, first-time homebuyers, rehabs, or multifamily units. She tracks, enters payments and her payouts and statements. If there's billing and late letters, she's got to manage that. And reconciling payments, and then tracking journal entry mixed fund loans, late fees, and interest. This is on a monthly basis, and she has to do an annual report. And she also has to manage audits on an annual basis. So this is all run through Becky Mestall in the City Services.
Does self-help have anything to do?
They did.
It
They
did.
don't any longer.
As of when?
2017?
Mid-17.
Yeah. So they were providing that assistance, not for free, but that went away when the budget cuts happened.
So we've had some different rounds of audits on this lately, and we always get rave reviews from the organizations that Becky works with. They come every time, and their stuff is.
Well, we know what
stellar.
happened with these loans is that they called it stacking. So they were giving them 3 loans in one. So we know how that happened. So, and that's why we had to go with self-help, right?
I think
We went with self-help to simplify the process. The stacking of loans where you had like a first, a second, and a third.
Yeah, that's illegal.
That's when Rich brought in a loan committee to make sure that loans were being properly managed in that case. We brought self-help in thinking to simplify the process and make staff time more streamlined, more efficient. But what we found after probably 2 years of using self-help was Becky was still having to do quality control checks on those guys. She was having to do it anyway, and she would find errors. And if we're paying her to do this, what's the point in paying self-help? And so we decided to take that back. But there's a loan committee that meets, that evaluates every loan that would be presented.
Who's in the loan committee?
Senior staff primarily.
I mean, we don't hand out any of these types of loans any longer.
No, it's a new
We're not
one.
doing
Yeah.
any of them right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, there was a
There's
few
no money
handed out that
available.
we did not qualify for that, and were handed out.
those
That
were
was self-help.
$300,000 loans that were given out at
Yeah,
that
no.
time. But I told them.
Okay,
So-
so
Mike,
yes.
are we still on?
Same home, yeah,
Sorry, go
home loan.
Finish up your home loan.
It's still increasing what Becky's responsibilities are, hazard insurance, and specifically if they're in a flood zone, impound accounts, annual reconciliation, and again, monthly, quarterly, and annual reporting. These are the agencies that are involved in who she reports to and audits that are developed, Home, CDBG, CalHome. program and income and business loans. And then there's investor rental project at the Groves Theater. So that's one project she manages as well. Landscape and lighting assessment districts. I think this one's relatively quick if you want to move forward.
Okay, this is last one.
Last
Okay,
one.
last one.
The very last one.
The last one.
7.
Rabbit.
Yeah. 7 landscape and assessment districts. Landscape and lighting assessment districts. Again, this there is an annual engineer's report done to look at that year's cost and projecting to what next year's cost would be. It's brought before council. There's a public hearing for each district that's held every year. If approved, then it's filed with the county assessor's and tax collector's office. So those are the 7 areas of response. Actually, each subdivision property owner pays into their own landscape assessment area. And so they have the opportunity to review costs that were either developed or projected. An example would be Heritage Park at Highway 65 and Tulare Road. I think we've only had one case of a car running through the wall there. But that is a landscape assessment area. The landscape assessment area is responsible for the repair of the wall. And so it may not have been included in that current year budget, but we have to collect it in the following year. And so there's cases where something would happen that we've got to increase or decrease the fee for each of the annual landscape assessment areas. So what do city services do, though? We manage the landscape contract. We have a contractor that was awarded a maintenance contract for these 7 areas. It's a 1-year contract with a 4-year satisfactory performance renewal opportunity. And then again, we track the expenditure to prepare the engineer's report, and then annual reporting for filing to the county tax collector that goes on the property owner's taxes, and that's where it's collected. I think that is it. Next one's the handout.
All right. Well, Mike, you're clearly a very essential person, and we think you need to go home and get your rest, so you can hit it again tomorrow. But thank you. Did we get halfway?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 areas left.
Not
Not bad. Not bad.
We do have a few other items. I mean, I would entertain if anybody wanted to make a motion to postpone item 11 to the next time, because I anticipate that could take a while, but, you know, it's up to the council.
Almost.
Seconded. All in favor of postponing 11 to the next meeting?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay.
Sorry, Brett.
We do maybe need to really quickly go over 12 because the vote's going to happen on Monday.
It is, and I'll be very, very brief. And so we knew that there was a need for a LAFCO's large city representative, and we learned more recently that there is a need for a small city rep. Now, I sent you some information out in the weekend update to let you think about it. There's not a requirement that the city of Lindsay be on this, but it's kind of important that we participate in the process. And that's why I wanted to give you the opportunity. LAFCO is a great place to learn. You work on some important issues related to annexations, de-annexations, the formation of, say, utility districts, that sort of thing. And I've presented there a few times, and it's a really interesting dialogue that takes place. They are slated to meet the first Wednesday of each month at 2 p.m. at the Board of Supervisors chambers, but it rarely occurs that often. It's just that they have business to do. If any of you have an interest, I'd be happy to carry that forward if you want to serve in that capacity. If you don't, that's okay too. I just want to present you with the opportunity.
So, Bill, I knew that the small cities thing was coming up, but I don't know if Rudy wants to continue in it. And I think that he could if he wants to.
Well, I had heard that he was out, is what I had heard, that Rudy was out.
His term ends, I don't know if he's out, I don't know if there's a
Because we knew that when we were looking for the large city rep. We knew
Right.
that Rudy was in that position, and then following that, the word that I got was Rudy was out.
Well, his term does end, and I don't know if
Okay.
there's a term limit or
I
not.
see.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
And the large city, that's definitely out because he didn't get reelected, so. But if there is an opening there, I would be interested. Lindsay has not been on the LAFCO for a long time as a small city rep. Woodlake has and Farmersville has, but Lindsay hasn't. So I would be interested in putting my name forward on that.
Cool.
Mhm.
Council, you want to do a vote?
You got it.
So,
Yes.
all right.
Yay.
Okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Future agenda items? No, seeing none, moving on to, adjournment, motion to adjourn.
Madam
So we're gonna add to that.
With your permission. So the informational item on interfund advances was brought on related to the request of three of you.
Mhm.
It's going to be a lengthy presentation also likely. We can handle this a couple of ways. We can certainly do it and postpone it, but perhaps we send you the staff report and resolution and let you look that over and see if that satisfies, or if it maybe helps you kind of narrow down the scope of the questions that you're going to have. Is that agreeable to council? Or
Yeah, I still want a presentation though. I still want to know.
If the two new council members that haven't heard this before want to just come and meet in Bill's office during the week next week, we can do that too.
Yeah, you can go ahead and send it to us, or me anyway, I don't know. You want it
I
sent?
think
And then that way,
is a good idea, so we don't.
But I
so that way we can, like you said, we can go
Yeah.
over it, review it, and if we have any questions, at that point, we can put them together, and then we can meet with you with those questions.
Yeah, but I would love to have it on the agenda because I do want public record on what we
It has
discussed.
public record, but
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
That's your call, how you want to manage that.
I would like that.
That's
Do you want them to email it to you?
Yeah, and then we could discuss it maybe on a Friday.
And so, yeah, you figure that out, what you want to do, and then you come back and you say, yeah, we want it to be on agenda for whenever you want.
No, if you could have your own meeting with Bill, then I'm sure that would be helpful too. Even if we still bring it
I'm
back.
fine either way, I'll do all three, whatever's fine.
Okay, we're clear on that one?
I am, I
Okay,
think.
so, all right. Motion to adjourn? So we'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.